First of all, I wanted to thank Howard College and Pam for the space and the food. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all so much. When we came together, and this is kind of full circle, I walked in this room, I don't know how many years ago it was, but Howard hosted an event here and wanted to bring groups together. And me and Jan and Donna sat at a table together, and we created the Concho Valley Tech Alliance at a table about where you're sitting right now. And I don't know how many years ago it was, but full circle to come back here to Howard College. So I feel so grateful for that. So we are a group of techie guys and gals that we kind of got together and thought we need to share our ideas with the public, and also create a group of people that can bounce ideas off of each other. We've come a long ways. Recently we just created a new web page, ConchoValleyTech.com. We do have a Facebook page, and we have a LinkedIn page. If you want to get connected, if you want to be a part of our group, definitely reach out on any of those avenues, and we would love to have you join. With that being said, I'm going to introduce a few people first of all. Jan, back in the back, she doesn't want to be looked at all, but we're all going to turn around and look at her. Jan, she's a co-founder of this group. Give her a round of applause. And we got Casey back there too. Casey's the same thing. He's a part of our group. He's a part of getting this together. Give Casey a round of applause. We got the amazing DJ Gabe Menchaca over here. He's our sound guy, but he's also everything else. He's the web page designer and everything. So definitely give this guy like two claps of a hand and a big yee-haw. Who else am I missing? We do have Dr. Klaus here today that's on our board as well. Hi, Dr. Klaus. Let's give her a round. Who else we got? Anybody? Myself, I'm Todd Smith with Snyder IT. And, Sean's here. Hey, Sean. So I do want to introduce our moderator today, our rock star, our social media queen. Hello. And the rocker of all things, Amanda Rosani. I'm gonna give her the mic, and she's gonna introduce our panelists. You got your thing, don't you?
Yeah, you take it. Do y'all want to come up and take a seat, our speakers? All right, so I'm going to go by my script. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion on artificial intelligence, commonly referred to as AI, where we will explore the impact of artificial intelligence and its implications in a variety of fields that include marketing, nonprofits, and education. My name is Amanda Rosani, and I will be guiding today's conversation. I'm honored to have three distinguished panelists with us here today who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience in AI and its real-world applications. Since AI is a new topic for many in this region, we want to ensure this session is accessible, engaging, and inclusive for all participants. Each panelist will have a chance to contribute to the discussion. If you have a question, please keep it concise so we can cover as many perspectives as possible. We welcome your questions, and we will provide a dedicated Q&A session at the end. When called on, please limit yourself to one question at a time. If time allows, we will circle back for follow-ups. If your question builds on a previous topic, please keep it brief so we can give everyone a chance to participate. AI is an evolving field, and today's discussion is an opportunity to learn together. Please be mindful that different perspectives may emerge. The goal is to foster a constructive and informative discussion. We do have a limited amount of time, so I may step in to keep us on track. If a question is highly specific or it requires a deep dive, I might suggest continuing the conversation after the session, and we encourage this. So with that, I'll start by asking our panelists to introduce themselves and share a brief insight into how they work with AI. Starting with you, Kim.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kim Henry, and you can't hear me? I can't hear myself. Is this good? Y'all good? Okay. Thank you. My name is Kim Henry, and I have done a lot with AI. To give you a little bit about my background, I was in the Navy for 10 years as a cryptologic analyst. So I did a lot with different forms of technology and collection, did a lot on deployments with technology, but I decided to leave the Navy and become a social worker full-time, working in victim advocacy work, which is what I also did while in the Navy. So I am a social worker, which some people find interesting when it comes to talking about technology and AI, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But I really started working and researching AI and its impact on nonprofits. I'm an owner of a small business called The Gold Beacon, which is a consulting company that develops nonprofits and builds their capacity. And I wanted to know how AI can impact nonprofits and how it can help them work more efficiently. But also working in victim advocacy and victim rights, making sure that all humans are respected and their privacy and confidentiality when it comes to AI and technology. So I provided presentations around the nation, including in DC, regarding AI and its implications on humans, on human rights, and on our abilities and what we're going to expand to do.
Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Erdoğan Doğdu. I am a professor and the chair of the Department of Computer Science here at Angelo State University. My area of research is in data science, databases, and of course, most recently more in AI. We have, our program actually is kind of expanding. I will talk about a little bit, what we are doing at ASU. We offer programs in computer science, and recently started a cybersecurity program in an undergraduate program. We also have a graduate master's program in computer science, and then several other programs that are coming soon. We have about 400 students, so it's a kind of growing department. Faculty also, we are adding new faculty next year, 2 more, and then 2 more after that. My basically area of research, as I said, is more in data engineering, data science, but more in AI right now. We recently received a grant from Department of Defense, and that's for 2 years of study in AI and cybersecurity. Specifically in what is called knowledge graphs, using knowledge graphs to basically make AI more explainable, what is called explainable AI. So we work with a number of students, a team of students, undergraduate and graduate students. This project will hopefully send some of them to internships at Army Research Labs. They have several stations all around, most specifically San Antonio. This project is actually a collaborative project with University of Texas San Antonio as well as Texas Tech University, and we are part of TTU system. I think that's briefly it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Dantzler, and I'm a certified business advisor at the ASU Small Business Development Center. There I work one-on-one with small business owners and future entrepreneurs. And as an advisor, I specialize in marketing and helping clients utilize AI in their small businesses. I was also most recently part of a brand new program for America's SBDC called AIU. And that is through a $10 million grant that Google gave ASBDC to promote artificial intelligence in small businesses. And it's going to be a free AI course and training online. It's actually being launched at the end of February, and we'll talk more about it later on. But I was in the first cohort at our national conference to go through the program and share that information with you all tonight. So thank you.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and give them another round of applause, and we'll start asking some questions. Okay, so we all hear about AI and the new developments every day. There's a lot of talk and hype. From cybersecurity concerns, most recently about the new Chinese-created app DeepSeek, to regulation and legal questions. We just saw new laws from the EU that ban AI systems that pose unacceptable risk. To the reliability of AI, to how to best integrate AI. We're curious about how we can use AI, but there is hesitation about AI adoption and a growing concern about how AI is impacting education as well. And let's not forget concerns about bias and also energy concerns. There are many things that we could talk about, so let's begin by having our speakers take turns sharing a little bit about how they use AI in a specific way in their field, starting with Elizabeth.
Perfect. Like I said, I work with small business clients and entrepreneurs every single day, and we even use AI at the Small Business Development Center. A lot of it mainly relies on efficiency and marketing. So most recently, I've used it a lot in social media advertising, helping with captions, ideas, content creation. We use it for brainstorming sessions with clients frequently. So as an advising team, we can use an artificial intelligence program to kind of help with ideas. We use it to summarize a lot of our meetings with non-confidential information, of course, and then multiple other ways specifically with clients. I've seen it used most frequently in financial analysis, cash flow analysis. If a client is comfortable with, using some of their data in an AI program, of course, not with any of their personal information, using it to calculate return on investment and ratios for financial understanding to then plug that into a business plan. So we use it quite frequently with clients, and of course talking about, which we'll talk more about today, but ethical concerns and what data we can and cannot put into programs. But our center itself uses it very frequently.
Dr. Dodu?
All right. Yeah. So the AI is, of course, we are all using it, right? And then the thing is, AI is not new. It has been here for. It started about 70 years, 1950s, and we got here slowly and surely. It is really in everyday life. So everything we use in digital platforms, they all use AI, right? So if you are shopping at Amazon, that's AI making recommendations, or you're watching something on Netflix. It's all based on AI. So whether you notice or not, AI is there, and then we use it every day. So specifically, the recent large language models, of course, is a different beast. So it just came very fast, but then again, how we got there is not new. So the technology, the methods, algorithms have been invented years ago. One of the godfathers of AI, Jeffrey Hinton, he's a professor at Toronto University. They invented, the algorithms for the deep learning specifically years ago. But how right now it just became, a big push. How it got into our lives, specifically in the natural language processing. It was all because of the data. So there's the big data, which became, really available, and the computing power. So all these, new NVIDIA cards, GPU cards, they have been much more powerful than before years ago, and now with all the availability of data, the neural networks or the deep learning algorithms have been much more successful than before. Jeffrey Hinton also is one of the earlier successors. They basically what is called there's an AlexNet team. They won the first ImageNet competition in recognizing images, the objects in images very successfully. That was one of the big success in the case of image processing and algorithms recognizing images and objects quickly. So that made a big push in the area of deep learning, and then, and of course, to natural language processing, large language models. So this is all not happen immediately, but it happened over years of research, development, so on and so forth. And in those 70 years, there were some periods where there was what is called AI winters. Research stopped, funding stopped, because there were different directions they were trying to discover, and then some of those were stuck, they couldn't move. Maybe you heard about it, like expert systems. It is called an area called symbolic AI. So there are these two different schools it started with. The symbolic AI versus what is called neural AI, which is right now what's happening with the large language models. So the symbolic AI was stuck. It couldn't move. They couldn't get good results. And accordingly, some periods of stop in AI research. happened, AI winters, but eventually the deep learning models became powerful enough, and with the availability of computing power and the big data, they are now all successful. So in our, specifically what we do with research and how we use AI, so we are trying to, again, try to discover new methods, how the AI can be what is called explainable. So that I talked about a little bit earlier. Right now, the models, for example, ChatGPT, hallucinates, right? So it makes mistakes. It's all because you train these large models, but they cannot explain why they came up to that conclusion. There are some reasoning they claim, but it's not quite that. It's not like how we humans reason. So therefore, there is some missing information. So there are decisions made by AI, but it's not always reasonable, let's say. So that's the area we are focusing right now, trying to use what is called these knowledge graphs, so that the AI can be explainable. That will be based on the data, how it is structured, and how it is used to build these models, and hopefully that will bring some results that will also make AI more safer, and then hopefully that's the direction we are going.
Thank you. Kim, you're next.
Thank you. I love that he brought up AI started in the 50s. A lot of people don't really recognize that. And the first American Association for AI was actually started in the 70s. So a long time ago. So this has been around for a long time. I think the difference now is that we have generative AI tools and other tools that we can literally use in the palm of our hands. And that's, really generated a lot of interest and why we're here tonight. And so to answer your question on how we use AI, or how I've seen AI used, specifically in nonprofit operations. Nonprofits can be limited in their resources and in their funding, right? And in their staff and their volunteers. So what can we do, and how can we use AI tools, specifically generative AI tools and other deep learning tools, to be able to improve operations, process improvements, increase efficiency and effectiveness, but also predictive analytics. And saying, here's what's happened in our community over the past 20 years. Here's all these Excel spreadsheets. Take this and tell me what you think is going to happen in the next 10 years, considering our society. And by that, nonprofits and honestly organizations, social change organizations, universities as well, are out there and making decisions that are data informed and being able to say, this is actually what we need to be doing in the direction that we need to be heading. So we are using our funding and our resources effectively and efficiently. So we see that a lot in nonprofit operations. I won't get into grant writing. Nonprofits can use AI tools for grant writing, but there's things about that I have pros and cons on. Something else I wanted to mention again with the victim advocacy. There's already AI tools that are being used for mental health response, for crisis response. So you can get on an app and you can chat with a robot. Some might think that's kind of sketchy, but essentially it's like a triage. I was asked I worked on a project for the Veterans Crisis Line actually, where they wanted to implement using AI tools and sounded like a real person to anybody that calls the Veterans Crisis Line and actually triages them and helps them. I had ethical concerns with that because if I'm in a crisis, and as a veteran have used the crisis line, if I'm in a crisis and I think I'm talking to a real person and I find out it's a robot, there could be serious consequences of that, right? And so a big part of victim advocacy, and not just victims, but just social work in general, mental health, making sure that when we're there's a lot of different ways it is being used for humans, as far as directing information, directing their case management, or directing services that person might need, maybe making safety plans. So it is already being used in work to support or help humans and things like mental health and social work topics. But obviously she mentioned, we'll be talking about some ethical concerns with that. So I'll stop there.
All right, thank you. So next, let's talk about what will the job landscape be like with AI? How can the next generation prepare for and get educated about AI? And let's see, we'll start with Kim this time.
Thank you. So what will the job landscape be like? I get that all the time, especially with grant writers. and what I say when it comes to the job landscape is I understand that, we have movies that tell us what robots can do. And a lot of people think that's what AI is just a bunch of robots. It's not. I'm sure all of us here can tell you that. But what I always say is that no matter, in my opinion, no matter what we do with AI and how advanced it gets, humans are different than computers. There are physiological responses in our body when we respond to a situation, when we go through trying to start a small business, or when we have to deal with our family after we go home after a long day, right? Like, we can try to tell computers what that's like, and the emotions and the tension or the excitement or the happiness and the joy, all these emotions that come with being a human. We can't just have robots replace humans because they don't have what's called lived experience. And so when I talk about the job market and how AI is going to impact the job, there are many jobs that are going to be impacted by AI, and I'm sure they're going to probably tell you the same thing. However, AI tools do not have the real physical lived experience. So there is still going to be a need and a dependency on humans, on our experiences, on our recommendations, on our perspectives, and overall society as a whole. So there are jobs. I think every job will be affected. I think part of that question was how the next generation can prepare, correct? So for the next generation, kind of cross out the word next, like every generation needs to be prepared for AI. I have people that say, I'm not using it, I'll never use AI. Like if you have a smartphone, you're probably there's already some sort of AI tool or app or algorithm on your phone. So you're already using AI. You may not know it. And that's why it's great that you're here and being informed. But for every generation to prepare for AI and what they can get educated about, especially when it comes to the job market, is coming to things like this and just being informed, asking questions, looking up certain policies, asking your agencies that you currently work at, do we have a policy for AI and what does that look like? How are you protected? There are a lot of people that are fearful of asking these questions. You can't be afraid to ask these questions. And so how you can prepare is ask questions. Start the conversation, especially at your own agencies or businesses or jobs. So I'll stop there.
Dr. Dodu, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, all jobs will be affected. I mean, that's for sure, especially with the current status of AI becoming, having the language, the capability. That's something quite new. And then we know that every area will be affected, including creative areas like arts, music. We all see that, it's happening. So going forward, I think knowing this, I guess everyone should be educated. One thing that I say is that, so up until now, we were using computers by coding them, right? Now the AI codes. So what will happen is actually all of us will be coders. So you will have an AI agent that will help you in your job, and you will give instructions, and in this case, it will be English. Very nicely, instead of writing a code in Python, now you'll talk to your agent, and then you will make things happen. So therefore, I believe the positive sides. The AI will be a good companion for any type of jobs, whether you're a doctor, musician, anything, right? So all jobs will be affected, and accordingly, with every technology we had before, it was, technology kills some jobs, but also creates new jobs, right? So in this case, I think it will be the same. AI will not, replace people, but it will basically replace people who are not using AI. So you have to get used to it, I guess, get educated, and use AI as efficiently as possible. So for education side, of course, there right now with the internet and everything available now, getting educated is very easy, right? So you can learn how to do prompt engineering on these large language models, ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. It's all freely available online. There are so many books, resources, videos. Getting education is almost free, easy. So everyone should just be aware and then get ready for that, I guess, next phase of technology.
All right, I want to do a little sound check real quick. Is everybody hearing all the speakers okay?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Elizabeth, do you want to chime in as well?
Yes, I do. I think y'all touched on some really great points, and I'm so glad that Dr. Du said free resources, because I'll just plug AIU again. So again, I'll give a little bit more explanation. So there's an organization, America's SBDC. So there are field centers, small business development centers across the nation. We all offer no-cost, confidential, one-on-one advising to small business owners. And another part of our services includes training, and most of that training is also no to low cost as well. And so this larger America's SBDC organization was granted a $10 million grant from Google last year, and they have been spending the year organizing and planning and implementing AIU, which is basically AI University, and they're launching it at the end of February. So it's kind of perfect timing, to be talking about this. The first round is 5 courses, and it's all free, and it's going to be online. It's also linked in your resource page that I think is on the front table. And if not, you can always reach out and ask for it. And this is going to be free to everyone. I encourage you, even if you're not a business owner, check it out, because you can never have too much education when it comes to artificial intelligence, especially as it's always ever-changing, right? Dr. Dodu is talking about all the brand new aspects of it and constantly coding and learning new language. So you can never not know enough about AI, right? And so that's a really cool program. I'm very excited for it. I already took it as an advisor, so I'm excited to see what it looks like for my small business clients. And so I think just as a workforce, we can't be afraid of it anymore. Like I said, it's been around for so long. It's everywhere. And so not being educated on it, there's so much free resources out there. And so I think it's time as a workforce that we just utilize this to learn new skills. So what can you bring that's different, to a job? I think it's going to replace the tedious, maybe office. It's going to start in the office, right, in efficiency there. And so, if you're not utilizing it to learn new skills, then that job, yes, will be taken because AI is going to replace it. But if instead you provide something new to the company, then no, your job's not going to be taken away. And in all my research, I like this quote that I found that said, "Leading others is what AI can't do." So just always forming your leadership skills, moving up in an organization is just another way to make sure your job isn't taken, because as a leader, again, like Kim said, those personality skills and leading a team and organizing a team is not something AI can do. So.
Yes, I think we can all agree AI is not going back in the box. So that being said, what are the risks and ethical issues with AI? Where do you see this going, considering your area of expertise? Dr. Dodu, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah, of course. Although, as I said, I was on the positive side, there are risks here, right? So, and then people raise their voices, concerns, especially researchers who know this very well, like Jeffrey Hinton, and Elon Musk, so on and so forth. They say, this might be going into a direction of like super intelligence, and eventually make human race disappear, things like that. So the doomsday scenarios. I don't quite think that way, but still, I think the risks are there. And we have to do a better, I guess, oversight, right? So that's missing right now. There are no good regulations of this yet, and then there are efforts, but we haven't yet discovered, how to handle those unwanted situations. Like the bias is there with the AI, we know that. Many people are affected by those, and then of course there are other dangers, like and speaking of how the AI, the history. So the large language models is new, but the first arrival of AI is like 20 years back or a little bit further, which is the social media. So first time, these intelligent algorithms, how they are instructed or used to manipulate, crowds, the populations. It is there. The dangers are there when we can see that, right? We cannot control yet or we don't know how to regulate social media yet, and we don't want to go into the extremes as shutting it down or making it like all controlled. We don't want that way either. But then again, we definitely feel that there's something missing, right? There are dangers associated. So accordingly, I think there will be more efforts in terms of AI safety, how the AI can be utilized in better ways to make our lives easier, richer, and happier. Thank you.
Do either of you have something to add?
Yeah, so just thinking about the ethical concerns, and I'll specifically speak towards small businesses. I think being open with people, if you are using artificial intelligence, whether you're a service provider, just being open with that, make sure it's in your policies and you don't hide the fact that you're using that. Anytime I do work with clients, I always have that conversation ahead of time. Are you comfortable with this? Are you not comfortable with this? Kind of talking through that situation. In the effort of confidentiality that we do have with our clients, I always have that conversation about don't put personal information, just like you wouldn't share your personal information over email or to random people. It's the same with artificial intelligence. So anytime we use it for cash flow projections or financial projections, we always desensitize it, right? We take all that personal information out and it's just numbers. It can never be tied back to a person. So I think just making sure that you are careful, don't be too afraid of it, but if it's not something you're comfortable saying out loud, don't put it in AI, if it's personal information about yourself. And then I always encourage people to read the policies. So learn the program you're using before you just jump into it. So if you've never learned anything about ChatGPT, then don't start using it for financial information, right? Whenever I first started, years ago, I would focus on recipes for cooking or funny quotes or, just getting used to the program and prompt engineering before I used it for actual applications. So I think that's incredibly important in an aspect of that.
So I'm going to give a disclaimer. I do use AI, and I think AI is a great tool, especially generative AI, and so many benefits that both of them have talked about. But I am very vocal. Ooh, even the microphone's getting intense. I don't know what that is. I'm very vocal about the ethical concerns with AI because it is something that you can just literally download an app and start typing stuff in. A lot of people talk about AI, honestly, the general population, the first thing they think of is things like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot or like robots in the movie I, Robot. There's like one extreme or the other. And so I have a lot of the ethical concerns that I speak of. That's primarily what I speak about. The first one is privacy, is that there is a lack of privacy. I think some people are finally starting to see that and realize that may not have thought about that before. Just the concern of privacy and what is being shared and what's not being shared, right? A huge hospital system, when you go to Shannon, they input notes into your medical record, and then you go to the Shannon clinic, they still have those same notes, but those stay at Shannon. Okay, like yes, technically it could maybe be hacked into, but it's internal. With a lot of AI, especially generative AI tools, there's not a lot of privacy there, especially if you're using free versions. So I have that concern for privacy and again, people not knowing the tools or not taking the time to learn about them. Another is confidentiality. Working in social work, I'm not a clinical social worker. I focus on policies and programs, obviously, but it's not just the confidentiality of maybe a victim or a client, but the confidentiality of your family, right? She mentioned like financial information. What confidentiality protections are there? What information is being put in there? For example, grant writing. If you have if you're going to put your entire grant application that you have been successful in being awarded, along with all your other grant applications, where is that going? And is it going to be used to write somebody else's grant application and now you don't get awarded, right? I talk about money is a good example because that makes people be like, oh yeah. Another one, which this is huge, is the lack of regulation. A lot of people didn't realize until recently there was really only an executive order that was protecting not even American citizens. The first main executive order regarding AI, in recent time, is an executive order that was really just protecting the federal government, saying we will protect federal government systems. And then another executive order came out that was protecting American citizens. And there's just not a lot of regulation when it comes to AI. And being in intelligence operations, like I've seen what can be taken, what we can do, intentionally or unintentionally, but there's just not, it's not like there's HIPAA for AI, right? Like there's not a lot of regulation and protection, and that's extremely concerning. I told you this, I'm very passionate about this part, so just bear with me. The last thing is transparency. And Elizabeth kind of mentioned that with transparency. When I present, I intentionally put a slide on the presentation that says that this slide was created using AI. Because I want to generate your emotions. How does it make you feel if I'm a speaker at a conference and one of my slides say I used AI on that? Like, you can immediately question my credibility, my expertise, my knowledge on the subject, right? But that's key, because the whole point in showing you that is to say that you have to be transparent. If you're using, especially, I'm mostly talking about generative AI tools here, but if you're using forms of AI, being transparent and saying, I did use AI to create this, but it was reviewed with your expertise. That's key there, right? And there's a lot of people who are using AI and they're not transparent about it. I don't know if any of you pay someone to do your taxes or you do them yourself, but how would you feel if your tax person was putting all your information into an AI tool and not telling you about that? The last one is, I'm a professor, a social work policy professor at Simmons University, and there's the concern at the university level, and I don't know if you're experiencing this, but is creativity. Our brain is a muscle, right? Like, we have got to make sure if you don't use those muscles, what happens to them? They go away. So if you're using especially generative AI tools to do everything for you, then what kind of creativity are you practicing? What are you doing to generate new ideas and to keep building your expertise, right? And expanding that knowledge that you have. And so I have 3 rules. Can I share them? And then I'll be quiet. All right, one of my rules is AI is a tool and it's not a replacement. That is extremely important. If you really just follow that, you'll probably be good. But it's a tool, it's not a replacement. The second one is never copy and paste. And again, this is mostly talking about generative AI. And when I say generative AI, there's many different types. They both have mentioned some. But that's the stuff like ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot. But not to copy and paste, because some of these created with algorithms. Who created those algorithms, or how were they created, right? Were the right people at the table? And I talk about that a lot, because even with policies regarding AI or policies on anything, if you don't have the right people at the table, there could be a lot of problems. Does anyone here know what happened with Gemini and Google? Maybe? Anyone? Okay. Essentially, it was shut down for a brief time after it launched. Some of the algorithms that were created or that were implemented and used were not necessarily non-discriminatory. They were, in some regard, racist and discriminatory. And so as a social worker, if I'm going in and I'm trying to work on a social media campaign for something, or if I'm working on how to communicate with youth, some of the return of what I'm getting from generative AI models is not considering of different factors like culture, or how West Texas is a lot different than California, right? So there's that concern. You can't just copy and paste, because it may not be really valid or correct for your area. And the last one is never ask AI to do something that you don't know how to do. And the reason for that is because if you, for example, ask to set up an entire conference for 3,000 people, because we're going to lead this awesome tech conference, and you've never set up a conference yourself, then it's going to tell you to do things, and you're going to think, oh, I have to do this. But if you don't really know what you're reviewing, then you could possibly give yourself more work or waste a lot of money or time, and your credibility is kind of shot, right? So never ask it to do something you don't know how to do yourself, because with generative AI, when it spits out, I say spits out because it's so fast, but when it spits out an answer to you, you need to be able to check that answer and evaluate it and adapt it to what you actually need. So I'll stop there.
I forgot it earlier, but more specifically towards small businesses, it's very important that you understand the laws and regulations of your industry. So, for example, if you are in healthcare, you have to be aware of course, the HIPAA violations. And so how does that relate to AI and inputting client data? When you're on the retail side, you have credit card information and personal information of businesses. So, of course, there are policies out there that protect that. And then the last one would be like government contracting. So if you're in government contracting, you're working very specifically with the government, there's a lot of cybersecurity rules and regulations on what you can and can't do in your organization. And so being aware of the laws that surround your industry specifically is very important when you're starting to get into it. And then using those laws and regulations to create an internal policy in your small business to help you and your employees kind of manage that.
Great, thank you. And now we're going to springboard off of Kim's point, and I'm going to ask an individual question for each speaker, starting with Dr. Dodu. So in education, from your experience, what are you seeing as far as how students are using AI in the classroom, and then how do you permit use of AI without compromising the purpose of education?
Right, good question. We are trying to stop them using AI. It's very hard. It's impossible. Just like how the Google first came, you cannot stop them using Google. So same thing here. You cannot stop them using AI. In this case, we are teaching, say, programming classes, anything involved, software, algorithms. It's all there, right? So we will not be able to stop them. And then, how when they go out to the job market, it's the same thing, right? So the companies are not stopping programmers using AI. On the other side, right? So they encourage them to use them. So there is something called now Copilot, and it's a programming companion. So it is very successful, very helpful. So all software developers out there are using AI effectively, efficiently, which is very helpful. It increases according to some studies, it increases the productivity like 25% to the 50%. So why not, get benefit of that? So similarly here, we should not stop it, but the thing is the education needs to go through another transformation. So just like, the technology came, so the web and everything, so we use, immensely everywhere. So we will not be able to stop them. So we have to, I guess, reinvent the ways that we teach, say, computer science or anything, right? So it could be English too, right? So every area now is affected. So accordingly, how do we embrace AI and then make it part of the education? So that's what we should try. And on the one more thing that these large language model generative AI, the language part of it is so successful that now we will have our own personal tutors, right? So the education will be more accessible, right? So right now in my department we have only a few tutors available and so many hours, right? But with the AI now, anyone can have their own personal tutor, and then tutor knows everything about you, good and bad. So that's definitely a benefit. So we will, I guess, use AI effectively in education. So we have to find new ways of how to integrate and make it available and then useful. That's it.
Thank you. And this one's going to be for Elizabeth. With AI-generated content becoming more sophisticated, how should businesses and creators approach issues of authenticity and copyright?
Yeah, so this is something that I actually talk about with some of my clients when we're talking about marketing for their business. And I want to point out that sometimes people forget that this problem existed before AI. I think about when I wrote a paper in college and all the professors talked about plagiarism. Well, this is the exact same thing, but digitally using AI, right? And so the same tips, are very similar when you consider this. There's now AI that can create PowerPoints and create images and create logos and all sorts of stuff. But I always tell my clients that whatever software you're using, you have to read the policies. Canva is a design software that you can create a free logo with. But if you go into their policies, it states that anything that you create with Canva can't be trademarked or copyrighted. And not a lot of people know that, and they still try to do it. And so really being aware of what you can and can't do with that content is very important for legality reasons. And then just make sure you maintain ethical, right? If you're going to create something and pass it off as your own, that's obviously wrong. And so I tell people use common sense in that arena. And then also, like Kim mentioned, there should always be a human connection when utilizing AI. You should never put something in and copy and paste it as your own. Never. Just like you wouldn't record a friend and then pass off what they said as your own, right? Like always giving credit to the source you get it from. And so it's very important that you take what AI gives you and add some of that humanity back into it. Change it to actually reflect yourself. Use it as a tool, not as the end game. And so I think all of that is very important when you consider it. Are people getting away with it? Yes. Have they for generations? Also yes. So it's going to be a problem that is around for a while, unfortunately. And the last thing I think of is, again, just as you wrote a paper in college, whenever you're researching, you always go and fact check your sources, right? Same thing with artificial intelligence. You can actually ask them, where did you find that? Prove to me your sources, and then go fact check that yourself. And it's something I do anytime I provide research to a client that's generated from AI. First, we have that conversation. Second, I show them exactly how they can find that source and the information on their own and make sure that it is relevant and credible.
All right, thank you. And this one's for Kim. What are some specific AI tools that can support nonprofits and advocacy groups while still maintaining confidentiality and proper ethics?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We actually have a training coming up in March that I'm partnering with the Contra Valley Community Action Agency and Howard College as well to talk about using AI in social organizations and nonprofits. And one of the things we talk about in that presentation specifically are what tools can you use. And again, a lot of us are familiar or at least heard of ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot. Maybe DALL-E with images, Canva, right? There are a lot of tools out there, but it's what are you going to use those tools for? And so, my recommendation, of course, once you've become familiar with the tools, without putting in any information that can break confidentiality or privacy, you can, for example, create a campaign, so a social media campaign. Hey, we are doing this fundraiser. We want to bring awareness to it. Help us come up with 10 slogan ideas. And it will spit out 10 slogan ideas. And again, you don't necessarily copy and paste them, but you're able to look at them and say, oh, let's join these two. I like these. But you are saving so much time. You probably could have done that on your own after 3 weeks of beating yourself up about it. But it's right there and easily accessible for you. You can also help manage operations and write policies within your agency using generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot. It can help with your scheduling. It can help with emails. Has anybody ever had to send a really tense email and you just didn't want to? You had 10 people read it before you sent it. ChatGPT and other tools can help you rewrite that letter with a softer tone. And I mean, that can just save you how much time? I'm sure at least all of you at one point have had to write an email you did not want to write, right? And so that's something that can save a nonprofit executive director's time, right? Or a team's time. Also just communicating and creating a plan, here's what our resources are. We want to be able to do this in the community. This is what we're seeing. Help create a press release for us so that we can really share what's happening in our community. Help us write a letter to our legislators and to our lawmakers so we can advocate for what we're trying to advocate for. And again, there's so many different kinds of nonprofits, right? But it can help just create, again, process improvement and improving your operations efficiency so you can focus on what a worldly problem that you're trying to solve for the whole reason you started your nonprofit.
Wonderful. Okay, now starts the fun round of quick answers to a few questions.
Okay.
Then we'll go into the Q&A. So let's see. Do any of you have concerns about AI becoming too smart that it takes over the world like some of the movies we've seen?
Yeah, there is a danger. As I said, we just don't know. So we just don't know where this will, move forward. I talked about that earlier, that there are two schools here, the symbolic AI versus neural AI. The neural AI is actually very dumb. It hallucinates, it makes mistakes, because it learns the patterns and the biases and everything, but cannot explain itself. But the symbolic AI is more logical, reasoning, so on and so forth. So there is an area called neuro-symbolic AI. So I think there will be a lot of still work, studies. We just don't know. And another point here is that the AI now is getting more autonomous, learns from the earlier models. So if there will be some autonomous agent learning from the earlier or the other models, that's what is happening right now. Like the DeepSeek is trained, they are saying, with the other models, open models. So we will see how this goes. So there are dangers, so we have to be cautious and then have some oversight, regulation, so on and so forth.
Anyone else have anything to add to that?
No, I agree with you. I'll just say that I agree. It is a risk, it's a danger, but having policies and regulations can really help either slow that down or just completely prevent that from happening.
So do any of you, have you found a personal use for AI that you just can't do without? And share that tip with the audience.
Elizabeth, you want to go first?
Yeah, On a personal side, I use it for recipes all the time. I'm an avid cook, and I like to see what kind of changes it can bring to a recipe. Also in the office, we use it for social media. Generating content for social media captions is exhausting. As a marketer myself, is exhausting. And so we use it for social media and fun stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
A simple use I found, you can put this PDF document as a table, for example, that you cannot copy and paste to an Excel sheet. ChatGPT reads that and then gives you a table, which is really nice.
Which is nice, yes, that is.
I just found it that it must be doing this. I just tried and it worked.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is nice because I do a lot of PDF uploads. For me, a personal use that I have for AI, we have 6 kids. It's like a zoo, but the youngest one is 6 years old. He's super smart, but also has a lot of ADHD. And so I homeschool him, and he is on a first grade. He's technically a first grader, but he's moving up to second and third grade levels. So it can be very hard to stick with one curriculum or stick with a certain plan or an activity, and following the regulations of Texas, all these things, right? And so something I use AI for is it helps me develop his plan, his learning plan. Once I say, okay, he's got this, like, can we move on to something else? It doesn't just take the lessons that he's already learned. I give it information like he learned how to do this very quickly. And so it adapts the entire next 6 months of his learning plan to say, okay, we're not even going to focus on that. So for example, he's doing double-digit subtraction in his head and now starting multiplication. So instead of just telling it, okay, he's got subtraction, when I explain that and I explain how long it took, it's creating a very customized plan so we can focus on other things that he needs to work on, right? And it helps me as a mom to be able to make sure that I'm supporting his learning as well. So that's why I personally use it.
Wonderful. So this is the last question before we go into a round of Q&As, and that is thinking about the global issues like climate change, healthcare, rescue missions, accessibility, things of that nature. Have any of you had this big idea for how you envision AI being used in the future to solve one of these issues?
So for global issues, oh man, I could talk about that forever. I won't. But I have a service dog, and I'll just talk about accessibility because we haven't talked about that. But if you don't know who I am, you can look me up on the City of San Angelo's city council meetings. But I'm a very big advocate for disability rights and accessibility. And with AI, there are, people don't know that people can actually use technology to communicate, and otherwise they wouldn't be able to be vocal. There are things like predictive analytics. There's so many tools that can be used to help accessibility and people living with disabilities, right? We all have cell phones, I'm sure. The phone was created by helping a person who was deaf be able to hear. And that's how the phone was created, right? And so when we're looking at what technology can do, like, it could literally change people's lives, especially when it comes to accessibility and allowing people to live lives like we all want to live, and to be able to experience and live a fulfilling life. So,
would anyone else like to lend their ideas?
The tutors, I said that about that education, and also the health, the accessibility again. So I was listening to this podcast. These are like top doctors and top AI specialists, and then they were talking about, it will be very soon that in the U.S., for the doctors to make diagnoses, they have to consult for AI first. Otherwise, it will be a malpractice very soon. They were expecting, like, in the next 5 years, doctors will not be able to do their business without consulting AI, because AI has all the knowledge, all the data. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I think there would be more accessibility, hopefully, to medical healthcare advice, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so what a great discussion we're having so far, and I'm sure you all have a lot of questions, so we're going to open it up to the floor, and raise your hand if you have a question, and Todd's going to come around with the microphone.
We're audio recording this event, so we do ask you to use the microphone.
Yeah, this is for Elizabeth. So I know, since you work with a lot of small businesses, would you ever recommend them using something like DeepSeek because it is less expensive, even though it's like a Chinese model?
That's a great question. I personally don't know much about DeepSeek, but it's really hard. I always try to recommend the ones that I know I'm comfortable with, but I always tell them to experience, and research on their own, so that's a personal choice, right? As a business owner, you have the choice to use the resources. And so I always just tell folks that you can't research something too much, right? You can't learn with it too much. And like I said earlier, I would always recommend that you don't put in your personal information or information that you wouldn't say out loud without really learning the platform or more. So, I think it's up to the individual person. So.
Actually, you can recommend it, but you cannot use it. You know that on ASU.
I do know ASU cannot use it. Just received an email today,
Just banned.
so I can't use it at work or on my personal phone. But yeah, again, personal choice as a business owner.
This just came in today.
Yeah,
The email, yeah.
I did read that email. So.
Right.
Any other questions? Raise your hand.
So I used AI recently in one of my groups with my teens that I work with, and we used it in a different way to where instead of asking it questions and having it answer those questions for us, we wanted to use it in a way to kind of spur our creativity. And so we assigned it its identity, and then we told it what project we were working on. And then we had it ask us questions one at a time, and and then the next question was based on the answers that we gave it. And so I'm wondering if there are other really creative ideas that y'all have used as far as using AI to spur creativity and innovation instead of asking it to give you the answer.
Yeah, I guess it is about that reinventing education. So we have to do that. So we just don't know all the methods of it. I'm sure people are trying. So we have to, I guess, so in my case, for example, computer science, we are teaching programming, software development, so on and so forth, algorithm development. And definitely using AI is very helpful, but we don't want just copying, as you said, right? So you have to give tasks which are more innovative so that they work on the problem, understand the problem, and then solve the problem. So it will be maybe more project-oriented assignments instead of just doing some simple coding assignments, which is very easy right now. Ask AI, it tells you the answer. So it doesn't help them to learn. So we have to, I guess, find ways of using AI in education in general.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, that's a great question. I think if you look at what it is that you do, can I ask what kind of work you do?
Yeah, so I have,
Yes, good job.
I'm starting up a nonprofit eventually, working with teens and working on teen empowerment and giving teens voice in our community. And so, part of that was helping our teens identify what they wanted our mission statement to be, but not giving them the answer. And so having our teens actually think through what's important to them and put it in their own words. And so I thought that was just a really creative way to use AI to give us questions that helped us come up with more creative answers. And so I'm curious to see if anyone else has used it in a way to spur creativity and innovation, because that's really what our group is meant to do. And I really want our teens to be able to use that in a way that's not taking away from their creative side, but actually promoting that creative side.
Well,
So.
thank you for sharing that. And I kind of wanted you to explain that a little bit so people could know. But in that situation, I mean, if you think of the worksheets, that's something very easy to think about, right? Is worksheets. You can ask generative AI tools to create a worksheet to help us develop a mission statement. And the mission statement, we want it to be based off of our personal experiences and our lived experience, as well as the recognition that we live in a West Texas rural area. With limited resources, with not much communication about teen violence or teen youth, challenges. Please create 5 questions that can help generate our prompts or thought-provoking ideas before we have our meeting on what will be our new mission statement. And then you have 5 questions that are actually generating new ideas that they will have to answer and kind of think about to be able to spur that creativity. So. I see it a lot. with
I
social
have a tiny point to add. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I think it really focuses on your prompt engineering, right? So trying lots of different things, making sure that you have very specific goals, very specific background, objectives, and then just playing around with it yourself, to further help, your organization. So.
I've got a question. For the benefit of the audience, maybe not everybody understands and knows, what is prompt engineering?
Great question. I think maybe we can share this one. You talked about it earlier. But prompt engineering is basically how you utilize AI in what you put in the prompt that you ask, the questions you ask. And you want to make sure that you're specific and how do I explain this? It's not just a one and done prompt, right? So you give it a background. You say, for example, if I'm trying to write a business plan, you're a business owner in this industry, in this background, this is what your services you offer, this is what is included in a business plan. Like, give it objectives and then further have that conversation, right? So after you give it that background, then it says, okay, I'm ready. And then you say, okay, now write an example of, market analysis in this area with this population with this. So you keep giving it more data, and it's kind of a back and forth, and then that's prompt engineering. You might have a more technical definition.
Exactly. So that's kind of you are programming AI
Right.
or the generative AI, instructing it what to do and how to do it. So explaining in your terms the context and what you want to give, so on and so forth. Yes.
Right, and if it's a generative AI, then if it gives you something wrong, then you tell it, no, that's not what I want, go back to this,
There's
right?
a conversation back and
Yes,
forth.
exactly. So you need to make sure you tell it yes or no, that's not exactly what I'm looking for, more like this. And so really helping it refine its own answer.
It's a good skill to learn.
It can be very difficult.
Has anyone ever had to write a bio before? I'm sure all of you, yeah. And so you hope most likely have more than one bio. The bio that I share here is different than when I share like at a conference for just victims' rights. And so you can have your resume, you have your experiences, maybe if you publish some journals or if you're a professor, whatever your case may be. You put your background in with your resume if you're uncomfortable doing that, and if you use a paid version. And then you ask it to write a bio, and you can say, I'm going to be on a panel. I actually use it to write this bio. You're going to be on a panel. This is what you've done. This is your experience. And I kind of have a running project, so it has like 16 different bios in there now. But I say, this is the purpose of where this bio is going to go and who's going to be reading it. Please make sure it's clear of my experience in this environment, right? And then you have a bio that you don't copy and paste, that you adapt, but it gives you somewhere to start.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, I got one. Is it polite to say please and thank you
Oh
to
my gosh,
AI?
I do it all the time. People make fun of me. People laugh. If you come to my class in March, you all are going to laugh at me, but I will show you how to use prompts, how to do prompt engineering, and how to use generative AI. And I tell it please. I'm like, just in case robots take over one day, like they ain't getting me.
I think I'm too nice to mine because it's now giving me like emojis, like the little blushing emoji. It's like, you're welcome. And I'm like, oh boy.
Oh my gosh, not interested.
Yeah.
She's using ChatGPT.
No, I texted this, by the way. Get out of here. Don't tell on me. So we know that AI is a double-edged sword. We know this is known, but AI also empowers both cybersecurity issues, cyber criminals. How, as a business, can we leverage AI to actually defend against the increasing, more sophisticated AI cyber attacks? It took me 5 minutes to write that, I have you know.
That's okay. That's good. Good question. Man, I mean, that's hard because it's hard to talk about certain things, but my experience in the Navy and then past being a small business owner, the amount of finances and budgets that I keep for my nonprofits, like cybersecurity is a major concern. When I'm, talking to nonprofits that work in victims advocacy, and I tell them, don't just say, hey, this is Julie and she needs a case plan. She's a victim of da-da-da, right? There's all this information people are putting in. So how do we protect that and what can we do to defend ourselves? Again, be informed. I think all three of us have said that is be informed. There are a lot of free versions, but free is not always better. So if you're using a generative AI tool, things like ChatGPT, if you use the paid version, which is really only like $20 a month, they still take some of the data, but they actually give you an option. Do you want to use this information to share with our algorithms or not? If not, then it stays internal, right? Like it's a little bit more protection. There are companies, I'm sure they could probably tell you, especially with the DoD contract, there are companies that are making a lot of money on cybersecurity of AI tools and systems, and it's very, I don't say lucrative, but the same way that there are systems that protect our healthcare records at Shannon, there's systems that are being created like that for AI. So as far as defense goes, is you've got to be prepared. You've got to be informed, but also prepared, and possibly, depending on the work you do, be ready to fork out some dollars.
You can use Snyder IT to help you with those.
There you go. Yes, we'll support.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Cybersecurity.
reach out to your local cybersecurity expert.
Yes, there you go.
All right. Any other questions? Raise your hand.
Okay, first of all, thank all of you for being here. I've been using AI for some time now, and my brain is like going a million miles a minute for the different ways that it happens. I am a professional photographer as one of my gigs. AI has completely transformed that area. The Topaz software and the AI models, it seems like every day almost, or at least every other day, they're coming out with new updates, with new models, things like that. They can take photographs from old time and make them brand spanking new. You know, it's magic. You know, it's like I put it in there, go tink tink tink, and you know this beautiful picture comes out, and it has transformed the way that I do business. They also have software in the video realm, and this is where I get scared, because I can take a picture. I had one client that had he's in his 70s or 80s, but anyway, he had a photo done by Mr. Ragsdale, who was a photographer here in San Angelo back in the 1800s, early 1900s, things like that. Well, he had a photograph of one of his relatives. We took that photograph and animated it to where it's saying happy birthday to him. Mm-hmm. You could not tell that that was an animated just from one photograph. Yeah. Okay, this is the part where it gets scary to me, because we use video. I'm also part of the media landscape here. I work for KLST, KSAN, and I'm on the advertising side where we create advertisements and things like that. We have used the AI now to create storyboards. Okay, so we tell what are we trying to get done here. We use it to create personas for our advertising, to create a valid business model. And so we present that to our clients, say, okay, this is what, in our customer needs analysis, we met with you, you're telling us what we need for you want your advertising to do. Here's what we bring to the table. And I work for Nexstar, and they have a tool called Platform X. And it is all of the digital products that they have. You input all of this information into Platform X, and it creates a customized digital plan for you based on the demographic you're trying to reach. Would they be watching TV? Do they have mobile phones? What websites are they looking at? It looks at all of that information and puts together a customized digital plan for you. It's highly targeted, very effective advertising. But all of that is done through artificial intelligence. As long as we're doing advertising and we say that it's advertising, then a lot of ethical concerns are they kind of go by the wayside, because I have a message. Now I'm creating graphics to tell that message. If I'm on the other side and I'm on the news side of it, then my graphics have to be the story. I can't manipulate that at all. And what I'm finding that is becoming very, very easy to take a photograph of a real human being, and I can make that person say or do anything I want. And that is scary.
So
Because-
I think that's really valid. That it is terrifying and scary. I was actually just talking to the Arizona Attorney General's office about victims' rights, and if you're a victim and your offender says, "Oh, I wasn't here, I was in Hawaii," and they can just create a video of them in Hawaii and use that as evidence, and how do we verify that?
Yeah.
And that goes back to the lack of regulation and the lack of policies. Personally, I believe if you create your headshot with AI, then you should put that this is AI generated on the image. But there's just not a lot of regulation for that, and so. But your points are very valid and very. Those are some serious concerns.
This reminds me of whenever digital photography just came into vogue, because at that point I could now make a video, a photograph, and I could put anything in that photograph that I wanted, and you could not tell the difference between if that was a real photograph or a manipulated photograph.
Yes.
And so in a court of law, the photographic images are now suspect,
Yes.
because they can be manipulated in that way. So as either personal ethics or some other tool, it seems like with every advance of technology that we have these issues to go through, and AI is just now starting on the cusp of some of the regulatory stuff that we see. It is very powerful, but on the same time, people that don't have your best interest at heart, they have very powerful tools
Yes.
to not do good things for you.
Yeah.
Okay, now for a semantic issue, if I'm programming and I'm creating, and I think basically at one time they just called them trees, decision trees. Okay, so I'm going to go through this decision tree, and I'm going to put everything I know about, working on a car, or changing an oil filter, or something like that. We're going to put all that stuff in there. What is the difference between just that and, having some awesome, all-encompassing if-then statement? That's, well, if this happens, then this happens. Well, if that happens, then this happens. If that, da-da-da-da. At what point does it actually make the switch and not just become an algorithm, but actually becomes artificial intelligence? Where is that line drawn?
Yeah, so I guess you're talking about the neural AI, right? So which is the deep learning networks, deep learning in general. So the neural networks is actually trying to imitate the human brain, right? So that's what they are trying to do. You give input with what is called back propagation. The weights are changed in that network, and then it learns the patterns from the big data, right? So it is not like anymore having a decision tree, if else. That's the symbolic AI part of it, with rules and regulate. You're trying to give the rules, and then trying to teach the rules, and then the reasoning mechanisms, which didn't work. It didn't work, and then that's why we had these AI winters. Now with the neural networks, it's a black box. You just give the data, and that's why it's called billion parameters, right? Billions of parameters. It's a huge network, and all the data on the web are fed into that network, and then it learns the patterns. What comes after this word, right? So that, I don't know how many tokens they are saying, like 30,000 tokens, one after another, right? So it learns those patterns in that huge network. That's why it's very expensive. It costs like millions of dollars and then months to train such networks. So it is a completely different area right now. So, and then the problem again with that network is you can't tell how it came up with that conclusion. It cannot trace back. The internal thing is just a mess. It's a huge thing, billions of parameters. It will not be able to explain, so on and so forth. So it's a complex area.
Very complex.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, we are at time on the Q&A session, and I want to allow, that sounds like it might be a deeper discussion you could have individually with speakers. So I want to allow that networking opportunity and the ability to have one-on-one conversations with our speakers, go get some food, drinks, stretch, and just have fun. And if your question didn't get answered, now's your time. You can go talk directly with the speakers. And thank you so much for coming. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. I enjoyed this a lot.